All right, let's get it. Today, I want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse in the first year of the second administration. This video will be heavily centered on the waste, fraud, and abuse as it relates to immigration and ICE. I think that it's easy for people to rant and rave about the illegalities of ICE, and rightfully so. But I think one can just fall into their party's corner and easily ignore the abuse of power. But something that everyone can relate to is money, right? Regardless of party lines. When you start talking about money, people listen. So, with that being said, let's talk numbers. As of early 2026, the administration is moving forward with a 38.3 billion with a B project to acquire and renovate large-scale warehouses across the country into regional detention centers. The goal is to expand capacity from roughly 37,000 beds to over 100,000. Deportation levels are lower than the projected 1 million per year, totaling roughly about 623,000, well short of the targeted goal. I don't understand why we need to build warehouses to detain said migrants if the goal is to deport them, right? Also, does this not reek of Nazi Germany? Does this not reek of internment camps? Building warehouses specifically to hold people hostage, to hold them captive? Let that marinate. Under the previous administration, ICE focused primarily on individuals with serious criminal convictions, roughly 63% of the arrests. In the first year of this term, that has flipped. Data suggests that only about 31% of new detainees have a criminal conviction, as resources are now used, for interior sweeps, like ICE being in Minnesota and Chicago. That's exactly what this slide is referencing. We're being told constantly about the worst of the worst. We're getting the drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers. The data doesn't suggest that. In fact, the data suggests that the Biden administration was more efficient. Moving on. A new and expensive trend in 2025-2026 is the use of third country deportation agreements. Recent reports show the administration has paid countries like Equatorial Guinea and Rwanda millions of dollars to accept small numbers of deportees, sometimes costing taxpayers over $1 million per person. I'm going to say that again. Costing taxpayers over $1 million per person. The administration paid El Salvador approximately 4.765 million roughly to 6 million in 2025 as part of an initial grant agreement. The agreement estimated a cost of roughly $20,000 per prisoner for 1 year of detention. See, we pay to send the detainees to El Salvador, to CCOT. We pay for that. We pay for the flight. We pay for them to be housed in said prison. We pay. And when I say we, I mean U.S. citizens, taxpayers. We pay to send detainees to Africa. It should make everyone rethink this whole ICE strategy. Not only is it inefficient because they're not getting the worst of the worst, but it's also extremely expensive. This is the waste, fraud, and abuse. According to a February 26 report from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the administration has spent at least $40 million specifically on third country deportations. Exactly what I was just talking about in the previous slide. Because these operations involve moving people thousands of miles to nations that are not their own, the logistics are significantly more complex and costly than traditional direct removals. And when you get some time, look up how many times they've sent detainees to a foreign country only to get rejected. So then we have to pay to bring those guys back to America. I mean, it's literally a comedy of errors. More staggering immigration costs. And I do want everyone to tune in, pay attention, listen to these numbers. The current administration has allocated $13.5 billion with a B to reimburse states like Texas and Florida for their own independent border and enforcement operations. Basically mean they have to pay them for the police work because they're not federal. ICE operations just in the last year, fiscal year of 2025, spent $28.7 billion, nearly triple from 2024 during the Biden administration. Nearly triple, y'all. The border wall construction that Mexico was supposed to pay for, border wall basically cost $46.6 billion. That's with the B. This represents a massive increase compared to the first Trump term, which he spent roughly $15 billion and is dedicated to completing the physical wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Yes, that same wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for during his first term, Mexico still hasn't paid for. which they never was going to pay for it. This is also the same wall that Steve Bannon went to jail about because he was hustling MAGA supporters with his Build a Wall fund. Yeah, frauding. That's what Steve Bannon went to jail for. See, these people don't really care about any of these issues. Now, they may be a tad bit racist. I'll never say that they're not racist. But in the end, they're all about the Benjamins. It's all about the money in the end. But let me continue. Unrestricted enforcement fund totals about $10 billion, and it's basically a slush fund granted to the Secretary of Homeland Security to be used at their discretion for any border-related enforcement and deportation needs. That's why Ice Barbie is always on planes and jets and stuff. That's that $10 billion right there. Everyone should be upset about how much money this is costing the American taxpayers. Everyone. So why isn't Doge targeting this ICE strategy? You know, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Well, I'll tell you why. Trump signed an executive order 14222, in February 2025 to formalize Doge's powers. He included a specific carve-out, meaning there were areas that they could not touch. Those areas are ICE and CBP, law enforcement, military, and intelligence. So basically, they got the green light to just be as reckless as they want to be with the taxpayers' money. At least from the president. I mean, because Congress still has oversight. That's why they're fighting now about ICE's budget, which is kind of cemented in the big beautiful, I shouldn't even say that, the big ugly bill. But still, they're arguing about reducing some of that budget with the limited powers that they have. So, I hope you guys found this video informative. I hope you guys are just as upset as I am as it relates to how much money is actually being spent on this ICE strategy. And I just want everyone to remember one thing. Inflation was supposed to come down day one. We're still waiting on that. Peace.